I'm calling this meeting back to order at 7:03. Not in red, right? Oh, all right. Okay, so everyone back. Let's see, I'm going to open up for public comment again. We've got one request here. For Casey Buck.
So I had some questions. If the school closes, will there be any severance or security pay to try to retain teachers from accepting other contracts, like if it happens later down the line? Or if we're going to offer any kind of incentives so they don't basically run, as soon as they see another job opening. Also, I feel like the hiring committee should be posted on Parent Square in terms of if there are parents that want to sign up to be on the hiring committee for teachers, then there should be like slots, maybe 5 slots available, whatever times are set, and parents that can come. That way everybody knows about it, not just these parents or those parents. That way it's posted publicly, hey, we need 2 parents on our hiring committee. Also, I'm a fully credentialed teacher, you guys know this. I'd be willing to take a job to fill a temporary permanent spot regardless of, what's going on with the school. And I don't know how that also plays into the board, as I've also applied for the board, and I did see that teachers are not allowed to serve on the board, but how are teachers going to be represented in terms of, do we get a separate union, or can we have teachers on the board and maybe not sit in on certain sessions and just sit in at the table for the open sessions? Just bouncing some ideas off in terms of the roles of teachers being represented here also, since we don't have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for open public comment? Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
No, it's fine. No, it's fine.
This one, or did you want this? Oh, okay. Which double is this one? I thought it was like.
Is somebody else? You? Okay. Oh, here. Gustavo? Is it Gustavo?
Mi pregunta nada más es, porque en una junta de Houston estaban solicitando fondos para renovar la cocina, y en una junta posterior del OCC dicen que no hay fondos para retener maestros auxiliares. Entonces, ¿por qué no mejor? Prefiero yo la educación de mi hijo a que renoven la cocina.
And then we have Amanda.
So I'm going to follow a little bit of what Casey had spoke on as far as the parents being involved in the teacher interviewing process. I had been told in a previous meeting that the parents would have an opportunity to at least sit in and watch, speak up, and I have found out that some parents have been able to do that in some of the interviews that have happened, and so I just hope that that would be open to all parents. As a parent, I'm having a really hard time not knowing anything about the person that my son might be in a classroom next year. It's something I've always been able to plan and know, and so I would love to be able to sit in on an interview. And another thing that I wanted to bring up was the health benefits. It's been mentioned that cutting health benefits may be something that is going to be considered to save money for next year. And an idea is shopping health benefits on a yearly basis. It's something I've done in my entire career. Every year you shop the market. You have a broker, you talk to new brokers, you don't just settle with one, you shop every year to get the cheapest. The health benefit market is constantly changing, and there is always a better deal out there. So those are just some ideas that I have.
Thank you. Okay, report from closed session is we had a conversation with our attorneys regarding the school closure, and we're working on a few things. I'll give a report in 5.4, if that's okay with everyone. Let's get into the agenda already. There's a action to accept the agenda. Did everyone get a chance to look at the agenda? Are there any changes to it? If not, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I move to approve the agenda.
Take a second, please. Second. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And then, as I understand, the minutes were not posted, so we're going to request, I'm going to ask the board to postpone the minutes for those two so that they get to be posted and everyone has the opportunity to read them before we approve them. So can I get a motion to postpone those minutes? Can I get a second? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Let's start with business services. Do we have the JP here?
Yep.
Where are you, JP? Oh, you're in the back. Okay. Hello, JP. So one of the things that we have been discussing as a board is board development. As we all know, everyone has to be developed on a regular basis, and this board is going to be doing the same. A few meetings back, we approved a budget to get that done, and so we have JP, who has been with the board and provided some training in the past, to provide us with some training. So, welcome. Wherever you'd like, grab a mic. Not this mic. Oh, I mean,
I can make a lot of noise.
Let me just see. I think I can do it.
It's an Apple, it doesn't do that.
I know.
Surface does though.
Hang on just 1 second. Awkward. Is this on? You can hear? I'm pretty loud if I want to be. Okay, good. Well, first of all, I'm very pleased to be here with all of you again and to continue the. Thank you. Oh, perfect. That works just great. Thank you. To continue the training that we started in the retreat during the summertime. And just tonight, I'm going to do a very short what's ahead and why is this really important, as your chair has alluded to. Everybody needs training all the time on a continuing basis. And every nonprofit, whether the people are passionate about rescuing animals or curing cancer or saving the environment, has to have a strong mission that they believe in and supporters that believe in them. And those supporters do everything, as we know. They have bake sales, they make runs, they tutor, they clean rivers, they do a lot of those things. And the supporters are critical to that mission delivery. But the board of directors, as we've alluded to in the past, are different. They do set the mission, and they are strong supporters, of course, but they have very specific roles that we want to be looking at during this training. And I think for everybody, it's really important to remember that a board is a corporation, which I know you know, and we've talked about at some length, but just to make sure that everybody really understands that, because it's not a social club, it's not a booster club, it's not a group that's designed for anything but in trust for the citizens of the state in which it's chartered to run a business. And therefore you have to have certain skills. There's a combination of skills that need to be present in any board so that you can actually conduct those. And the corporate law in the state in which you're chartered lays out those legal responsibilities. And I think when you look at your agendas, any agendas, that you see very quickly what a lot of those are. And certainly finance is huge. You have to be able to worry about the accounting and the audits and the fundraising, and even when you file your taxes, you know, knowing what the nonprofit tax rule is, and when does that get filed, and all those kinds of things. And then you have those HR issues, you know, the human resource issues, as you were just alluding to, the health benefits certainly come up under the businesses, the hiring, the performance evaluations, the having enough staff. All those things, again, fall to making sure that that board has those skills somewhere along them. You own, or you have a building, and you have a lot of equipment, so property management and how to manage replacements of equipment, many things. It goes on and on. You have communications, marketing, risk management, and really importantly, you have the legal aspects that you have to pay attention to. And those are complex, and no one expects any board of trustees, whether you're a big university or a hospital or a small animal rescue group or a school, to know all of the corporate law. But you have to know when to ask, and you have to make sure you have good counsel that says you need to stay on the safe side. So those things become important, and sometimes people will say, well, let's make sure we have an attorney on our board, but that person could be maybe some kind of a corporate attorney or immigration attorney. It could be a lot of different things that doesn't understand nonprofit law, which is its own specialty. So these things are things we all are looking at, and I really commend you for continuing this, because no one goes to board you. We're all out here doing our own businesses, and the board university only happens when boards are willing enough to say we need continuing training, we need lots more development, and the laws change all the time. You know, the regulations you have to abide by change, so keeping up with those is really critical. Now, I gave you a handout in your package. I don't know if you have it handy, but if you do, it's red and black, and it has umbrellas on it. And I'll walk you through it, so you won't, anybody else won't get lost as we're going along. Just very quickly, it's the roles and responsibilities that we spent some time with starting last summer, and we're going to roll those out more as we go forward. But this was put together back in 2016 by an organization that since 1988, called Board Source, has been studying boards of directors all across the country. Whether you're a huge hospital or again a university, or whether you are a local library or a small other nonprofit group, they've looked at what does it take to be a good board of directors. Not only just to comply, but to be good enough that you can sustain your organization. Because it takes more than just simple compliance to make sure that you can really stay alive and you can grow and you can fulfill that mission in ways that everybody wants you to. So under the graphic that you have before you, there are three umbrellas that are three major tasks that boards have. And we're going to kind of group some of our training as we go forward under those. And the first one is establishing your identity, which you've already done, because you know why Oasis exists, you know what the purpose is and what you want out of that experience and what you've been able to get out of that experience for all these years that the school has been in operation. So you have the identity. But the board becomes the mission keepers. And you really have to keep that in mind, because every time you take on a new program, a new initiative, you have to say, does that really fit our mission? It could be a very interesting idea, but it might not be your mission. It could be somebody else's mission. And groups tend to creep in their mission a little. So yours is pretty clear, and we would want you to be thinking about that. In your next umbrella, it says ensuring adequate resources. And the first thing everybody thinks about when you see resources, you think money. And of course, you have to have money. It's the fuel that runs these nonprofits. So whether you earn it through tuition or you get grants that are given to you or whatever ways, you have to have enough money to sustain. But there's so many more resources that a group like the board of directors has to be concerned about, because you can have all the money in the world, but you can maybe be missing the knowledge you need or the specialty knowledge that you need, and you can't teach, you can't do the things you want. You may not have an adequate facility, and you may need to worry about that thing. So whether it's a human resource or a physical resource or an intellectual resource. Those are all kinds of things that the board is charged with making sure are in place all the time. And on the left side of that umbrella underneath, you'll see that it says, work in partnership with your CEO. And when you get big enough as an organization, as a nonprofit, then you can start hiring staff to do the jobs that volunteers would maybe do originally in a group. You know, you can think of a lot of really small nonprofits, and all the big jobs are done by all the volunteers. But then it becomes too vast, and so you need to hire staff. And a board typically hires one employee. That doesn't mean you're off the hook for the performance of everybody. You are. But the way boards work is they hire a chief executive officer who hires the rest of the staff and manages that staff day to day on behalf of the board and behalf of the people who believe in the mission. So, but that's a partnership, and you need to really all the time be building on how do you make that partnership work well. Because you don't get to just hire and walk away and say, lots of luck, hope it goes well. You know, you need to be continually growing that person too and helping them evolve as a professional and give them the resources they need and the respect they need and so forth and so on. And then the last umbrella is oversight. And you might think, oh, that's really easy. You know, we just look out and make sure all the programs are going well. Well, that's easy if you know what all the programs are and you know what all the laws are and all the rest. But if you're not entirely sure everything that needs to be filed in a year for a nonprofit, not a lot of you are sitting here. I mean, it's not something we all think about. How do you look and make sure you've got the right oversight? So those are the kinds of things that I would be helping you with in the development, is making sure we've got really good tracking systems and checklists, and so your oversight job can be facilitated. And you can feel assured, and your supporters feel assured, that in fact, that oversight job works. And there's oversight in lots of things that we have, which we won't go into detail tonight on. And I'm going to cover just 3 more things pretty quickly. And it's in the right-hand upper column on your page there. Under corporate law, there are 3 duties that a board must perform. Individual board members and collectively together. And the first is the duty of care. And it just simply means you must take care of this organization. You have to pay attention. You have to stay engaged. You have to ask good questions. When you don't know something, sometimes people hesitate asking a question, assuming everybody else must know. That's not the way it works in boards. You're supposed to raise your hand and say, help me understand this. Let me know what this is all about. You need to verify your facts and verify your figures and make sure that you're fully engaged in that way. Because you are the stewards of this mission and the stewards of the organization to treat it well. The second one that you see there is the duty of loyalty. And this is a really important one. Every person who joins a board under corporate law must say they're going to make this board service a priority in their life. It needs to be something you'll really give attention to. You'll take the time to pay attention to. You'll read what's supposed to be read, do the things that are supposed to be done. And you do that as a group, and you check your own personal agendas at the door. It's required of you not to bring in your own initiatives in, whether it's for your own personal benefit or your own personal point of view or professional advancement. That's not what's important here. What's important is the health of the organization. And it must always be the question you ask yourself is, are we putting the mission of our organization first and foremost? And so we really look at that in loyalty, and it's an important one for everybody who's going to be involved on boards. And this fits, by the way, other boards that we serve, but certainly this is fine. And the third one is the duty of obedience, and we know this. There are lots of rules and regulations you have to follow. And sometimes things from the outside seem like they must be very simple. Why can't we just, do this or that? Well, there are many, many rules that you have to follow. HR is one of the toughest ones. Hiring, personnel issues, those are fraught with rules. And you might want to do one thing, but the law does not allow you to do that. So you have to pay attention to that. You have an authorizing set of rules from the people who give you your charter. And those would have to be followed. You have internal regulations like your bylaws. Every nonprofit has bylaws that structure who's your officers, how many people on the board, and so forth and so on. And you have policies. How many people does it take to sign a check? How much money will you put in the bank before you pay whatever? Those kinds of things. And they need to be reviewed on a really regular basis and updated as appropriate as things change in the groups. So you've got federal, state, local laws, you've got regulations, and of course, all the way along you have ethics that you have to follow of what's ethical behavior. I'll just say one more time that under the law too, the law sees a board as a single group. So you are a governance by group act. And every one of you is equally liable and responsible for the actions of a board. And if you were out that night, doesn't mean you're off the hook. You know, you are still supposed to be paying attention. You're supposed to come in with different points of view, but very politely, very professionally, share your different points of view, your perspectives, exchange those things, but you're supposed to, I've taught them hurricanes, give fire drills, everything, so don't worry about it. So you're supposed to always have a really lively, good discussion to make sure all points of view are heard. Once you take the vote, the laws also require you to be 100% behind whatever action was just taken. So you all know that. Now, I'm not telling you a lot of things you don't know, but I think for the benefit of everybody understanding why is it important, why are we going forward with this kind of training, to know that it's complicated. It takes a lot of ongoing thought behind it as we look. So what might we cover as just in conclusion here? You know, I've put some ideas out in my proposal. We certainly will work with your leadership and you all to say, what are the areas that you feel most you need or where you'd like the most help? And they can be on measuring success, it can be on accountability, it can be on partnerships, it can be on setting what we call SMART goals that are achievable and timely and all that, or whatever you like. But I look forward to working with you in the months ahead. And I thank you again for having me here.
Thank you, JP. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So just for everyone's update, we have a contract with JP and she's going to be providing the board. Okay. So everyone, no one can hear me like JP? So we've asked JP to provide the board with an ongoing board development for the next probably 5, 6 sessions, 10 sessions.
It goes a long way.
Right. And so once a month, we'll get probably about a half-hour presentation on one of the many topics that the board will need to continue to do its job as the UCN board. So thank you, JP, for that. So let's move on to 5.2, the financial reports. Call Donna, please.
Donna?
The light's not on. The lights. The lights are on.
It wasn't green.
So the light will. Oh, now it's on. No. There you go. Hello, Donna.
Hello,
Hi, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, we can hear you too. Good evening. This is Augustine.
Good evening.
So we're ready for your report.
All right, would you like start with the balance sheet.
Let's start with the balance sheet. Does everyone have access to that laptop? Yeah, it's not, we don't have them printed.
There's another
It's on the
one.
phone. It's on the Chromebooks. Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Donna.
Okay. So at the end of April, cash in all banks was $1,248,599. The accounts receivable, employee receivable, and employee receivable, some are 125. Those will also, all three of them will be paid by June 30th. The prepaid expenses of $41,506. Of that, there's security deposit on file for $12,114. And then there are subscriptions that will be expensed in July. Actually, the balance of it will all be expensed in July, August, September. They're prepaid subscriptions and memberships and conference fees. And it looks like 2 retainers. So those are all, those add up to $41,506.62. On the liability side, all of those are current payroll liabilities that flush out each month, with the exception of the 1/6 withholding payable, which is the summer deduction that's taken out of the employees' checks, and that will be paid to them as a net check in July. The rest of it, those are all current payroll liabilities. So do you have any question on the balance sheet?
Any questions from anyone? No. Nope. Let's move on to income statement.
Okay. So let's see. Let's look at the income statement.
So I'm going through all of it, and most of it is at the 80.
I'm sorry, I can barely hear you. Can you say that again, please?
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Thank you. So I'm looking at most of the percentages, and we're at the 80 to 83, I think, is the highest. So that leaves us with what, 2 months? 2 months left?
Yes, 2 months left.
Okay. So they're pretty much in line with what we budgeted, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Is there any that you see right off the bat where we need to review?
Let me have a look at
Unemployment insurance.
Okay.
It's 105%.
Okay. So, Donna, as you're looking through it, there's one, the unemployment line item that's at over 100%.
Okay, let's go look at that. That's an expense that is difficult to project because the school belongs to what's called the school employee fund.
Okay.
And that's a fund strictly for school employees. It's a very low percentage for the employers, a fixed percent. This year, 0.05% of the gross wages. But then you'll see those UI local experience charges.
Mm-hmm.
Those are charges for employees who have left the organization and are now drawing on the fund. So we try to project them, but as you can see, you know, we're, what, about $500 difference or something like that,
right,
roughly? Or, yeah.
Right, Donna.
So that's going to cause it to be over the 83%. But the only one, if you look at the ones above all that, they're all in the, 79%,
sure,
84%, 89%. They're all in the range.
So Donna, I can give a little more detail on that. Casey and Kim and I looked at that very closely, and what happened was for this particular year, this 17-18 school year, we had a few substitutes apply for unemployment, and so we had a few substitutes apply for unemployment, We also had employees who had left Oasis maybe a year ago, and they applied for employment, and they asked, I guess, for the last 2 or 3 prior employers. So those came unexpected. So we did have 2 or 3 unexpected situations where people apply for employment, which is their right to do. And all we have to do is verify that they actually did work for us and they earned that amount, and that's it. The rest is legal right they have to apply and receive unemployment. So substitutes and at least 1 staff member who left prior to this school year, like 2 years ago. Any other questions about that?
No, any other questions about the income statement? No? Okay, thank you. Donna, what's the next thing that we're going to look at?
That's really, unless you want to go over the cash flow statement, that's really all we have to go over, because your expenses all seem to be in line.
Right.
I don't see anything really that stands out that we did not totally expect.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it all looks to be in line. The cash flow statement, it's projecting cash through the end of the year. Let's see, we're estimating at this point that at the end of June there'll be about $1,123,000 somewhere like that in the bank, and it doesn't look like you'll have a lot of receivables this year. So after the receivables and the oversight is paid and the summer is paid out, it looks like we're estimating about $1,120,000.
Okay. Okay, any other questions for Donna?
One real quick one. Donna,
Yeah.
we do the deferred pay for salaried employees, correct?
I'm sorry, I can't really hear you.
We do the deferred payment for salaried employees. Is it possible that that could be done for hourly employees as well? Would that be terribly complicated, or is it something that could be done?
Okay, can you explain that again? I had a telephone ring at the same time you were talking, and I didn't really get what you were saying.
Just my luck. We do, for salaried employees, we do a deferred payment. I was recipient of that in the past. But I don't know that we've ever done that or that it's ever done for hourly employees. Is it possible, or is it terribly, terribly complicated?
To pay the employees twice a month? Is that what you're asking?
No, deferred payment. Say someone was making $15 an hour, to set a part of that aside, just as we do with the salaried employees, and do that for them in the summer months. And pay them.
So in other words, extend the payment so that they're not, the time that the school is closed, that they're still receiving some of their pay.
Are you saying for the classified people?
Yeah, for the support staff, right?
Yes.
Non-teaching staff.
Okay, so for the hourly person, are you suggesting a summer deduction for the hourly person also?
Yes, I am. I'm asking about the possibility of it. Is it terribly complicated?
Well, as long as they earn enough and each take, there's one way to do it. They can pick a percentage. We can do this right in paychecks. They can pick a percentage of the net amount that they want the school to hold for them. And then whatever percentage they pick, for the certificated, it's 8.33% of their net pay. That's what's held out for them. For the hourly, I don't know if they want to hold out that much, but you guys can pick a percentage. I wouldn't give them too many choices, what percent to pick. But then you'd have to have a form to have them fill out that advises that they wish the school to deduct these monies and hold them for them and pay them summer pay.
But it doesn't sound very complicated.
No, it's not.
Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
Is that something that
has been requested like that, or is it just an idea?
No, it is something that has been requested by other staff members to have deferred pay so they can get a July check.
Okay, it's only 1 month.
It's only 1 month, so they get deferred for 10 and they get paid in the month of July.
Okay. Thank you, Donna, for that explanation. Any
Sure,
other
you're
questions?
welcome.
Any other questions for Donna?
Yeah, I got one on the SB 740.
Yes.
Are we all caught up, or?
Oh, yes, that was paid up last year.
Okay,
Yeah. We're getting ready to do the application for the next year.
okay. 1920, right?
Pardon me?
1920 or 1819?
1819.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just waiting for a couple of papers to be signed.
We just need some signed paperwork from the school, and we can finish the application. I've already started it, we just need to finish it with the paperwork. And the lease that we talked about, Juanita.
Yes, we are waiting for a couple of documents to be signed and the lease, which when I go over the July 1st budget, preliminary budget, I'll discuss with the board. There's no changes on the rent, so it's just a matter of signing the third amendment to continue with the lease for another 3 years with the same lease amount for the next 3 years.
Okay. Thank you, Donna.
Okay, you're welcome.
Have a good evening.
Thank you, Donna.
You too.
All right, bye-bye. Okay, let's move on to 5.3, the OCC update.
Hello, guys. Okay, so May 7th through 11th, that week was Teacher Appreciation Week, and I went ahead and put something on Parent Square in regards to letting parents know if they wanted to help donate any goodies for the teachers, they could, and I actually got a good feedback from parents. I went ahead and did the shopping Monday, was it? Monday? I think it was Monday after work. And so I started it on Tuesday. I decorated the teacher's lounge. I put up signs that said thank you in different languages, a welcome sign. I decorated the tables, and they had coffee, bread, fruits, granola bars, sodas, waters, a lot of little goodies, and we did it throughout the week. We got enough donations, and OCC bought enough stuff too to where we even had a lot left over of non-perishable stuff too that we just put out there, and I haven't checked the teacher's lounge if there's still stuff there, but I'm hoping that at least it got them through another week of, you know, granola bars, and definitely there's a lot of coffee, enough to hold until the end of the year, and so I know teachers loved that, and I thought that was really great, and the parents really came through too. We also asked the kids if they wanted to write notes, thank you notes, or little sentiments for the teachers. And above the sink, we went ahead and decorated there and put all those little notes, letting the teachers know. And then if you guys go back here, you can see the front of the door going into the teacher's lounge. There's little apples with the teachers' names on there. Just make a little appreciation. And then, so we were supposed to have the spring barbecue / rummage sale May 19th, and we had to cancel that. Unfortunately, we did not have enough help. We had the all-family dance, and so that kind of led to we're not going to have enough help for the barbecue. We had a okay turnout, but there wasn't that help to decorate. It was myself and Isela who decorated, and so that was very stressful a little bit and very kind of like a letdown because we don't have that community help. So therefore, for the spring barbecue, we all know that it takes a lot of people to cook, get this chicken, get everything, and so we're not going to have that help, so we had to cancel that. And then May 30th, which is tomorrow, right? I don't know what date we're on, I'm sorry. Evening assembly tomorrow, sorry. It's an evening assembly, and I believe that's for last month, the students of last month. And then June 13th is the field day. We are going to talk about what the teachers need in order for OCC to go ahead and buy those things. I know they've done relays, potato sack races, spoon and ping pong races, and so we'll help the teachers provide the things that they need in order to run that, and then hopefully we'll get some parent volunteers to go ahead and run those relays and help out. And that's it. That's all I have. Anybody have a question? No? Nobody?
Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you. Yes, it's not easy. I agree. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kat, for the report. 5.4, the negotiations of the board with Alisal Union School District. So at the last special meeting, those of you who were here heard me say that I was going to contact the superintendent to have a meeting to discuss the plan, follow up to the meeting that the parents had with the superintendent. I sent him an email and he replied saying that at this time we were going to hold off on that meeting as his attorneys and our attorneys were going to put together a plan to be presented to the board. That plan has been presented to the board, and we are currently in negotiations with the attorneys are negotiating some of the details of that plan and where we're going. Those negotiations will hopefully lead to a very positive outcome for the school. We're working on those. I can generally talk about the topics that are in there. Leadership is one of them. The other is this pending investigation that hasn't been resolved. The possibility or the charter renewal at the time that this charter ends. And so the other ones are a little bit smaller ones, but those are sort of the general topics that are being discussed in the negotiation that we're having. Where this board is looking at is that within the negotiations that we still have a school that is called Oasis, and the school that the dream of Oasis is still here, without losing what the school was from the beginning and where it needs to be now. So just on behalf of the students of the school, we're in those negotiations making the best decisions so that the school, if and when it remains open, that it's a school that we want for the children of the school. And so that's sort of the update that we have in terms of that. On another side note, I had a conversation with the Sandoval's and also with facilitated by one of the parents and an administrator, and we came to the table and discussed the issues that were brought forth by the family, and we're able to go through them one by one and come to an agreement, and hopefully a good step forward on how we resolve issues that come our way. And so that's on a positive note. I also met with a group of parents after the special meeting last time, as Miguel repeated. But I was able to sit with the parents and just sort of have a conversation. And so I'm still open and willing, time permitting, obviously, to have those dialogues. But in terms of sort of the negotiations that are happening with the school board, we're sort of slowly moving forward and chugging away with hopefully a positive outcome. But I will say that we are looking at the best interests of the children, and that they continue to get the education that they deserve based on this theory behind the school and the reasons why the school is open. And frankly, that it's not another school part of the Alisal School District. That we are a charter, and that's the reason for us being here. And that we're different and able to provide our children what we intended to provide all in one. So that's what we're negotiating, and we're hoping for a very positive outcome. Okay? Please.
So what can we as parents do, if anything, with our situation where we are right now in negotiations?
I think that what you guys are doing great. You're getting together, you're meeting, you're discussing some of the things that you'd like the school to see or to happen in the future. I think there will be at some point plan that we need to put together, set forth for the upcoming year. And I think that's for the best.
That doesn't really help.
I know.
Well, I'm just, right now, what we've been meeting is talking about like, what our next step is as a committee of parents.
Okay.
So that's where we're kind of looking for your direction on what should our next step be. Are we just?
Well, ask for the board, because so anyone from the board that wants to chime in, by all means.
Yeah.
But I think from my perspective, what I'd like to see is, you've provided some great stuff. I wrote down everyone's comments on here, and so these are things that we're going to be looking at when we move forward with these negotiations and so on. But I think what the important thing that you guys are doing is you're getting together, you're hopefully trying to involve as many parents as possible, and redeveloping this parent engagement. I think that's, from my perspective, that's the best thing you can do.
Encouraging more.
Yes, absolutely. Be part of sort of the parent component that used to be. It used to be.
Yes.
Right. And so just keep in mind that we are, from our perspective, negotiating on a general scale. And so anything that you can do that just make sure that we are keeping track of what this will be. Okay.
And I also have something I can suggest that parents do is continue attending the Alisal board meetings and continue sharing all the good and positive things that are happening here at the school. The more they hear, the more they're going to remember that there is a lot of good things going on here on a daily basis. So, and the more parents that attend and share their experience, the more often, the more it's going to stick in their minds for 2021 when Oasis goes before the board for renewal. And the negotiation process, I think it's going to help tremendously to continue to go, and even if it's the same faces, to be positive, to be sharing all the great things, and it's the only way that I can see this moving forward in a positive way. They have heard enough negativity for the past several months. I think they need now a strong dose of positivity from us, and especially that they have recognized that our community has so much to offer parents, staff, students. But more importantly, what was more impressive to me is that they recognize that our community has class, it has that essence that we are diplomatic, we are democratic, and that we go there to advocate for our families and students in the most positive way, and that we're not there to cause any turmoil or any chaos. So I think that could help, and it will definitely get us farther in the negotiation process.
And we as parents who have attended would love to see some of you there as well.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you. Let's go on to item 6.1, the preliminary budget for the next academic year.
Mine? Okay, so the preliminary July 1st budget that Donna and I worked on before, I have shared with the staff, I have shared it around with different people. And unfortunately, this is not as accurate as I would like it to be. And the reason being is that we estimated a high number of students enrolled. I believe we estimated that at 240, which is what we needed to sort of break even with the expenses and what we have, staffing and so on. At this point, we estimate enrollment of no more than 190 for next year, possibly 170 returning students, and then possibly 20 new enrollees max. Many of the families who had intended to enroll have declined enrollment or have asked to remove their names off the list. And also families who are currently enrolled, many of them have requested the transfer students file to be transferred to a different school. So that at this point, the budget is probably going to decline significantly based on that. Donna and I did a projection, and our budget based on the 240 is in the low 2 million. And when we did the readjustment, it was in the mid 1.5 million. That means it's going to hit us hard. Therefore, we have to be realistic, she said. We can't, and that's 190 enrollment. Then take into consideration that ADA is how we're funded. That means that we need to have students in the classroom on a daily basis, attending class, even if it's for half day, they have to attend a family meeting, a reunion, emergency, doctor's appointment, anything like that, they need to be here for part of the day. They can't just come in and sign them out and I see their face and you can be signed out. That is not okay. They need to come in and attend to us as long as they can for the day. So ADA is the average daily attendance. Therefore, it looks like we have to make some major adjustments to the budget moving forward based on that. They are fixed expenses. Those fixed expenses have to do with the rent that we pay and our utilities. Fixed expenses is teacher salaries and retirement, health insurance, stores, health insurance. All of those are fixed expenses, meaning that you can't change that. It is what it is for the next academic year. We have signed a contract for the next 2 years for health insurance. So Oasis has a contract through CharterSafe. CharterSafe is the same company that has the liability and workers' compensation insurance. Those cannot be changed. Salaries cannot be changed. The board recently approved a 3% increase. I was doing an update on the market, what other districts are paying, and we're pretty close. We're actually we're 1,000 to 2,000 off or less than what other places pay. And for some smaller districts, like I'll give you Spreckles as a good example. We're right there with them, with Spreckles. So that makes me very proud of the community that supports our school by bringing your students here daily and making sure they're here, because it is a business. We need the funding to afford higher salaries, to afford health insurance, to afford the rent, to afford the specialties. We need it. Without that, we can't afford it. And also acknowledges that the board has considered all of the factors of why people leave, but one of them was not the most important one, was salary. And that was not the main reason why people were leaving. There were other reasons why people were leaving, but it was one of the top reasons why. And of course, health coverage for their families as well. And so, with having said all that, I will talk about the lease. The lease is a 10-year lease. It expires December 31st, 2018. And it was up for renewal according to the contract, which I had to read over 100 plus, almost 200 pages. There was a clause in there that stated that we needed to renegotiate at least 6 months prior. That means June 1st. And I thought, oh Lord, June 1st was only 2 weeks before the June 1st deadline. So I met with Tony, the owner, and we negotiated. And I have to thank Tony for being thoughtful and considerate of our situation. I also was very pleased to hear that he's supportive of our community and he wants Oasis to remain open. So he said, what can I do for Oasis? And I said, the only thing you can do at this point, which I'm here asking you to do, is to extend the lease to be aligned with the charter until 2021. That's one thing. The second thing I asked is that the rent remain the same until 2021, given our current situation. And I noticed on his desk he had a very nice notepad with the increase, and I think, oh Lord, I don't know that I can negotiate a no increase off of that. After our 2-hour meeting of talking about Oasis and our situation and where we see Oasis, he asked questions about the board, what do you think about blah, and where is Oasis going with this, and how about the parents, and how about blah, blah, blah. He agreed to the contract for another 3 years with no rent increase. So there is my negotiation. I'm good at negotiating. I take that credit fully. It is my ability to negotiate with millionaires. He's a millionaire. He owns half of Salinas, half of Monterey, and maybe half of the county. So I take credit for that because I was going in there exhausted, tired, and yet I do have the ability to negotiate, and I know how to negotiate. I have a degree in that background. So luckily we have our 3-year renewal to be aligned. Moving forward in that amendment, Augustine, that you have before you, that I presented to you, and that was sent to me this afternoon because the state needs it by Friday. That's why I'm like, oh my God, I gotta get this done. We need the amendment to be submitted with SB 740. We can't submit SB 740, the application, without that amendment. And I asked them to please include 2 more renewals or options to be aligned with the charter for 5 years. So they included 2 more terms or options with an increase of rent to not exceed 10%. That's the other one, which is great. A 10% increase for that term is nothing in comparison to what is offered in this community. And you know rents are expensive in this area. You and I know that. So just knowing that we have kept our rent reasonable, and that moving forward we'll keep our rent reasonable, I am proud not only of the ability to negotiate, but the ability to have a relationship with the owner. And he said it was because of our relationship and his relationship and trust of this community. So he believes that Oasis should remain open. And financially, I told him we can't afford it. We just can't. We spend too much money in other stuff, and at this point we can have ongoing expenses like the rent and use the reserves, and that's not how a budget works. And I understand budgets really well. I don't use the reserve for that. And I would not advise the board to ever make such decision. It would be irresponsible. Any questions about the lease, the third amendment to the lease board community? Any members about the lease and the third amendment? It's 1 page, so it has nothing in it. We changed some wording. I wanted to make sure the wording was clear, not confusing, friendly to anybody who picked up that lease. And they did. They reworked it. They were very kind to work with me on the wording. They wanted to use legalese terms and attorney talk. I was like, no. I want my community, if they pick up that lease, to say, I know what this is, and I know what it means. Okay. So we have that, and we have to submit it by Friday. No, we have the Friday to the Charter Finance Authority for the rent. We get 70% of the rent, or X amount of dollars per student, max, whichever is greater. And if we have a lower enrollment, we will have a lower amount in SB 740. That means more money will come out of our budget to pay for the rent. The rent doesn't come down because of enrollment. The rent remains the same. So if we have 190, that means more money out of our budget to pay for the rent. Question back there.
Quick question about ADA. So if you know you're going to be out, like you said, family reunions, whatever, something, if the child's parent comes in for independent study, do you still get your ADA?
Yes, for the independent study, yes, we get the ADA.
Okay, so if, as long as it's prearranged and whatnot.
As long as it's prearranged and does not exceed the 2 weeks. It is completed. It has to be returned completed. If it's incomplete, it doesn't count.
Okay.
Yes, and it has to be graded by the teacher. And it has to be kept on record for the auditor to review. Because the auditor reviews those. So SB 740, any questions about SB 740? Also, keep in mind that based on our ADA, that's how we receive funding for special education. That means less money for special education. That's what it means. And the expenses for special education are also something that you can't say, I'm sorry, I can't give you this service because you don't have funding. It doesn't work that way. You provide the service regardless of funding availability. So that means that there's a possibility, a strong possibility, many districts are facing this, I'm not saying all, but many are, that they encroach into the general funding. So they have to use general funding to pay for special ed, unfortunately. And we haven't faced that, but we may if our enrollment is as low as we anticipate of 190. And ADA, we anticipated of being at 182, ADA, which is how we will calculate for next year. So, and we, based on that, we only anticipate having 8 classes. So offering 8 instead of 10. We just can't have 10. We don't have enough students for next year. So right now, all of the teachers that needed to be hired seem to be jumping on board. We're waiting for approval from the state to approve a couple of applications we submitted. We're in the process of submitting one more. And if that gets approved, then we're set and ready to start the year. If that does not get approved, then we have to continue looking for teachers. There aren't that many teachers applying. And the ones that have applied, by the time we call them, they have offers, multiple offers. And that's the reality. Yes, Amanda?
Do you have any idea what classes will be cut or combined?
We don't know. We don't know yet. We probably don't know until August. So we know who's returning. And sometimes even in August, when we start the year, we may have to combine classes as we go along. Let's say we have 2 classes and they just get too small, we may have to combine. So we don't have right now all the numbers. We will have to make cuts. The cuts will be in support staff. It's something we don't want to do, but we have to do in order for us to remain open and solvent. I know a couple of recommendations have been made as far as using the reserves for ongoing expenses. Donna has advised the board, as well as I have advised the board, and I'll continue to advise the board and the community, not to use the reserves for ongoing expenses. You can use that for the playground. You can use that for the new play structure, that's what I mean. But you cannot use it for ongoing expenses. It's not the appropriate use. If you do it 1 year, are you going to continuously do it the second year, the third, and the fourth? It's risky. And so we will budget according to the 1 year budget. I have in my almost 11 years at Oasis, 3 with Jane, and the rest with the community and the board. I have not ever budgeted our expenses based on what's in our reserves. Never. And that's, I don't know how people budget in their homes, but I don't, here with us, we budget based off of the projected income, what we receive, and then that's what we spend. The reserve is for legal fees that are astronomical right now, and then the playground, perhaps in the future, transportation. The HVAC has to be done. That you cannot try to save a penny here and a penny there. We need the HVAC. We have selected a company that has to move forward. And that's probably going to be the next week or 2. We're going to have the contractor going with the permit. The kitchen we wait. That I can understand waiting, not knowing our situation in the future. We don't want to invest a $40,000 kitchen. We know those are expensive. So that can wait, but we can't use the resource for ongoing expenses. I saw a hand up, and no hand up? Sorry. Okay. So, any questions about the budget? So this budget pretty much is out.
Sorry.
Yes.
You know, you said Donna and yourself didn't advise to use the reserve, and I agree that the reserves should be kept, that those things shouldn't be used. But usually, like you said about people saving in their homes, same as a business, you save for a rainy day. It's a thunderstorm. It is not a rainy day. We have a storm, a hurricane upon us. So if there ever is a time to use if there ever is a rainy day happening where you use that, you know, for board decisions, your decisions, that we do have the 1.2 million in reserves, then not all of it. I understand being cautious and conservative, but you save for a rainy day. That's how people budget in their homes, and this is more than a rainy day. So I would urge you to consider some of that.
Some of it can be considered, but we can't sustain the same level of services with a lot less money. So something has to give, and unfortunately it's going to be in staffing at this time. It's the biggest expense, about close to 80%. Any questions about the July 1st budget, about how things are going with that?
Only that we have to, it's coming to the board.
It's coming to the board in June. Probably in June you'll have to meet twice. One is mid-June and end of June. Donna needs it by June 19th so she can submit it to SACS. And then the last meeting just to approve end of the year business. But mid-June, sometime before the 15th, so that Donna can get that submitted, and then the LCAP that's attached to the LCAP. So that also has to be projected as well for the next academic year.
Any other questions from the board? With the preliminary budget. Okay, thank you, Juanita. LCAP?
The LCAP, oh my goodness, I'm on stage. Okay, the LCAP is a draft, and many of those, the 4 goals are the same. Some of the actions will change based on the budget, based on the enrollment, based on need. There was a comment earlier today that there is some information that is not up to date, and that is correct. The way that this report works is they want an update for the current year and then the projections for next year. It is a draft. It hasn't been edited. It hasn't been published. It's just the first draft that went out. Lucy and I have to sit down and review this and send another draft out to the community. We have to look at it very closely to make sure everything's up to date. Elizabeth is giving us some updated information for this current year. And so that's what we're doing right now, is looking at that and waiting for that information to come in so we can embed it. It's a lengthy report. It's probably, like I said before, it's never been less than 60 pages and never more than 100. But it has a lot of information. The template changes year to year. It has never been the same in the years that I've been doing it. So I always have to get used to the new template, the new information, or the different way of asking the information. Once it's approved, we send it off to MCOE. Electronically, we upload it, and then Alisal gets a copy, and Donna gets a copy, and the auditor gets a copy. So it's a rough draft. It's nothing's final yet. We still have to, like I said, go back and review and edit, and what does done, that's my job. He edits it. That's his job. Mike will help us edit it. But we'll have to go back and make sure everything's factual, that anything that's written can't be proven. If when doing the audit, this is part of the audit. They do look at that and they audit certain items. So, like I said, it's the first stab at it, and we have to go back and review and make sure that those actions and goals and objectives are aligned with the budget and with the input from the community. The LCAP, we talked about it. It's not only LCAP, but it's part of the budget. The advertisement will be taken off the budget. It's not necessary right now. We felt that with the negative publicity, the list, our name is out there, that hopefully soon the community is going to forget about the negative and have the positive later on. So that's going to be taken off. It's just not necessary right now to have Oasis name out there. It's not going to be good. And if you say Oasis, and I say, ooh, Oasis, yeah, that's what it's all over me. So I want to make sure that it's going to be taken off. We will be adding to the budget the health stipend once the board approves a health stipend of a specific amount to encourage staff to get medical insurance for the family for current staff members as well as new staff members. So we're looking at that as well. So it's a lengthy report and it's not done. It's not polished. It's not anywhere near done. Can't even tell you this is worthy of putting out there, but I have to put it out there because there will be things that we have to look at. And then the community will catch the things that they will say, well, how about this? Okay, the more eyes, the better. When you look at a report and you're looking at it for days and days, sometimes you just lose track of what did I put in there and what do I need to delete, and what is factual and what is we can have evidence of. So that's what we are working on, Lucy and I. Any questions about the LCAP? We got one input from for the LCAP earlier today. Any input from the board?
No, my questions were much like it come up earlier.
Okay. Thank you.
And the OCC has had an opportunity to review it.
They will have an opportunity. I asked Kat to put I asked Kat to put it on the agenda for the next meeting. So I hope she doesn't forget. Please, everybody, remind her. She needs to put it on. It needs to be on there. I sent her an email and I make sure we will have to make sure it's on there because it has to be reviewed.
And then is it sent to the entire community or is it?
I sent it to the staff.
Okay.
Staff has it.
So we can't post this on the website?
It's part of the attachments.
Okay.
It's part of the attachments on the agenda on the website.
Okay.
So it's on the website.
I invite everyone to take a little crack at it, look at it, see if there's any input that they can provide.
Yep.
We'll bring it up either through OCC or at the next board meeting so that we can just get it for everybody, please.
Yes, definitely. And again, some of these information is going to have to be updated constantly, and even as the year begins in August, especially with the staffing. One day I have some percentages, and the next day we have other percentages. We sent out based on a meeting we recently had, an LCAP meeting. There was a need to send out, or a request to send out a survey. So we sent out 2 surveys, one to the whole community, one to the staff. Actually, we sent out 3, community and staff, and then another one to the families of the students receiving the services. Now, all of that is going to be balanced with the budget. What can the budget sustain? And I'm sure we'll find a good solution to all of this. Any questions? No? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Let's go into number 7, administration, Saturday Academy updates.
Any update on, it's going, right? It's going.
I think our last one we had, every little bit counts for him. I think we have one more coming up due.
Yeah, that is the last one.
Yes, our last one.
Okay.
Second.
And we're targeting the parents, obviously. Is parent square the only thing, or we can phone calls, or?
No, we send home flyers and then parent square.
Okay. Can we do targeted, number for targeted? I know we I mean, since it's the last one, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, we can target like ones that have more.
Yes. Okay. And just so we don't. Every effort.
I would recommend everyone, and we all have concerns about the budget for the coming year, but as we pointed out, and I've heard many, many times over the years, our school lives and dies with ADA. We can do all the fundraising in the world, we can do all these other things, and they're good things, don't get me wrong. The school lives and dies with ADA. And if the kid's not there, the school doesn't get any money. It's that simple. And if you think that a couple hours away is worth a whole day of school, consider it as a drop in the bucket. But without drops, the bucket doesn't fill. It's that simple. I don't need to elaborate. It's just It's how the school lives.
Any other comments? Okay. Thank you. Just one final question, because I think it's 7.2, non-returning teachers and staff recruitment efforts.
Okay, well, we have a lot of teachers now returning. As you can see, some staff members, support staff. We have been actively looking for teachers, and in that recruitment, in those recruitment efforts, the following people have been invited: a parent of an EO, a parent of an ELL, OCC president and OCC secretary. Mike has been invited only because, not because I don't like the rest of you, but because I know you have full-time jobs. And they're usually in the middle of the day or morning, and only one or two max to be here. So Mike has been kind enough to join us for most of them, if not for all, but at least the majority of them. Teachers have been, current teachers have been part of that committee. A couple of teachers, an upper grade teacher has been part of it, as well as a lower grade teacher. So that has been extremely helpful. Recruiting. We usually have about five staff members. So we, Lucy, myself, a teacher, or two. We have had 2 teachers, Mike, and a parent. So 5 to 6 people. And the rooms are so small that that's just about how many adults could fit in that room, plus the teacher and the aide. Because they do demonstrations, lesson demonstrations, which is part of the hiring process here at Oasis. And then they do an interview after that. So this far we have 3 teachers who want to join in. Another one confirmed that she wants to join in, and I have one more offer to make tomorrow or before Friday. So that would be that. We applied for 2 staff temporary permits. We still are waiting for a response from CTC, and we are applying for what's called a provisional interim permit for another teacher. So we're waiting for that to be submitted. We're waiting for some documentation. That would make our 8 teachers. Teacher Esmeralda, Teacher Valerie, we're wanting to return. Even though major changes happen, they want to return. So we have to close the ELD position at this time. That's the one that I'm really concerned about. It's hard to find ELD teachers, but we have to find something soon.
So are there any other hiring committees or any other hires that we need to have?
Right now, only the ELD.
Okay.
ELD.
And because one of the comments or public comments is involvement from other parents that are interested in participating in the hiring committee.
There have been different parents involved in that process. Now, the challenge of opening it to the whole community is how do you prioritize and say 10 responses? How do you pick?
Oh, yeah.
So what I've done is I let Kat and Claudia decide if they want to select one of their group or someone else. So maybe they can contact Kat and Claudia, and I told them to pick one.
Okay.
So it's up to the OCC.
I think that's okay.
It's fair enough, I think.
I'll get to you guys or not.
So,
yeah, I think the OCC should be involved.
The OCC, they have been invited and encouraged to, if they cannot attend, to invite someone, and they have done what they can.
Okay. So I have comments.
3 years ago when my twins had lost their teacher, and when Josue was hired, she actually had posted, the director had posted on Parent Square spots open for certain times for interviewing, and then we just, whoever filled it first, that was how she did it.
That was for a specific class, so that's why we needed to do it. This is for school-wide, we don't know which class. And sometimes the interviews are from that morning to that afternoon, actually, which is kind of one. That was like the very next morning.
So I think
it actually wasn't, it was actually for that class, and
yeah, okay. Well taken. I think I think so, but I think that the OCC should take lead in getting the parents together, and I think that's it. So that it's not anyone
choosing. It should be the
here.
OCC.
I think
So
the
reach out to your representative.
OCC is good. So a good suggestion for Kat is to put one of those spreadsheets out and send it out, and then people can fill it in. I think that's a great suggestion. Jackie, do you have?
I was gonna say the same thing, that on Parent Square, there's the ability to say, you know, we need 20 volunteers. And Kat putting it out and saying, first come, first serve, and get like 4 reserves in case those parents can't make the appointment, I think would be a great way to open it up. And if you only want 5 parents, then only put 5 options.
Sure. Yeah, I think those are great suggestions. But I think OCC should take it up.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Any other comments on that piece? Okay. So if you hire the ELD teacher, you'll have the full staff of teachers come in the fall for the 8 class.
Once the permits have been approved by CTC, the 3 that were still pending, the 2 that are still pending and 1 to be submitted, yes, that would be the case. Otherwise, the answer would be no. And there's no candidates lined up at this time that we would consider bringing on board.
Okay, so the suggestion for CAT or OCC is that regardless of the need for hires or not, they should have a pool parent at all times that wants to.
That should be a CAT.
Yeah, I'll pull. Somebody will.
We will.
She
has been called pool. Just let her know.
No, that's a doable thing. I don't think that's.
And she's the president.
Yeah, she can take it on.
You having a senior woman? No? Oh, sorry.
Perhaps. No, that's fine.
I'll come back to you. You can always ask me
Okay.
before the end of the meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else on the 7.2?
Nope.
Okay. 7.3, update on the classes I know what it was. So in the happy event that, our enrollment all of a sudden starting tomorrow goes to 240, let's not get too ambitious, 240, then we need to be ready to repost and do all the whatever.
Repost and recruit. Remember, all of us, all the districts we are recruiting the same teachers.
Yeah.
So yes, we'll be ready. We have to be ready. The postings just have to be opened.
Okay.
And start recruiting. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, definitely.
All right, thank you. 7.3.
What's it?
Another senior one. 7.3.
Classes for the upcoming school year. Yep. So yeah. So
same thing, right?
Same thing. 8 teachers.
It was already covered.
Yeah. Already covered.
And 7.4, returning families.
Returning families.
So I guess a suggestion to the parents is try to keep our families here and try to bring back the ones that are new, hopefully. Anything else on that? Anyone? Yes.
So I think one thing that would be huge in keeping us updated that will help all of us in that area is if you guys can give us any voice of confidence that we are going to have a future, a stable future.
Yeah, as I stated before, we're negotiating that, and the negotiation is in the best interest of the children, so that we have the Oasis that is Oasis, and I'm going to be frank, that it's not another school out of the Alisal school district, because that's not what we are. And so, in the negotiations, that's what we're submitting and going back and forth, is that we don't have a school just like yours, otherwise.
So we're not.
And as soon as we find out, Amanda will let you know.
Right, so we're not at a decision right now. We still don't know if the revocation is going to take place. That's what I'm asking.
The negotiations are leading towards that.
Towards avoiding that.
Of course.
Okay.
And I can't say it because it's not the decision. But the decision is yes. If we come up with something that both entities can work with, the goal, obviously our goal is to keep it open. So be optimistic that that's the goal that we have. And we're close to negotiating, so we just have to get what's best for the school and the students. Okay? Yeah, we have a little bit more smiley faces here, so that we're feeling better about what's going on. Okay? Hopefully.
No, I agree. No. That's it. Don't worry. That's fine.
Yeah. Okay. 7.5. Do we want to discuss that or?
Vehicle transportation options? No, I actually said this option is on hold for now.
Okay.
It's just not knowing and making a huge investment of 200,000, 180. It's just even if it was half of that, we don't know.
Yeah.
In the future, although maybe in August, if you see things are positive, go ahead. I mean, all the information will be ready for you to review and be an excellent investment, I think.
So can we agree then that 7.6 also is in the same?
Which is, the kitchen is same.
Okay, so then I'm gonna ask for a motion to postpone those items.
Those items are information items that are not action items.
You're right, that's right.
They're just information
Okay.
items.
So 7.5, 7.6.
The only information.
7.7, the
It's
HVAC.
the HVAC. The HVAC right now is on hold for the next week or two. I'm only waiting for a few things, Erika. I'm sure I will get you that HVAC fix. I promise. I promise. It's only a couple more weeks. What happens is that right now, the contractor, once we sign the contract, with the contractor that the contracts committee selected, they have to go pull the permit and get started. So I think in the next week or two, we're going to proceed with that. There is already funds set aside, company selected. There's nothing holding us back except not knowing, and we were going to exist for the next academic year, but now things are looking more promising. So in the next week or two, we should be signing a contract. And pulling a permit, it only takes a day or two, and then they have to order the units, and installation takes a week between inspections and installation. So I anticipate it being done over the summer, no problem. Somebody needs to be around to make sure all of that is done. So I'll be in Mexico, probably in Cancun. So who knows? I will be around, but somebody needs to be around. A board member maybe, retired board member, anybody here? No. To make sure the HVAC is installed, the playground is installed, and that we pass all inspections, because we collect those inspection cards, we collect them.
Okay. So 7.8, the play structure.
The play structure, yes, that one, we gave a deposit, and it's time to move forward to the next stage, picking up the permit. So, and paying the remainder balance at the end. Well, we'll pay another, we make another payment, and then the balance at the end. So I was waiting just a little bit longer to see how much
The deposit was 30?
30 plus 30, in the mid-30s. Don't remember the exact amount. Don't quote me on that, mid-30s.
And if we decide to not move forward with
We lose it.
$30,000.
Gone.
Okay. All right.
Gone. Yeah. So we either move forward or we lose 30-something.
And they can't, I mean, in light of where we are right now, we can't postpone, or we can't delay moving forward with this.
Can we delay installation? They need at least 3 weeks, so if you want to delay it to, let's say, winter, that would be a possibility. But I'd say if you are to open next year, then it should be a go, only because the children deserve it. They deserve it. They need it, that play structure. They need a new one.
Well, my thing is, I don't want to invest any more than $30,000 at this time until we have a
definite resolution. And that's why I was waiting. I haven't done anything.
That's what I'm saying. Can we, even if we delay?
Even if in the worst case scenario, let me give you the worst case scenario, so the parents know what the worst case scenario would be. Of course, somebody else will have to make that decision at that time. In the worst case scenario is we close down the play structure for 3 to 4 weeks. I mean the play area, 3 to 4 weeks. We send them out to the field and play with the fun tires that everybody loves and talks about. Play with those, and then they will play there for the next 3 to 4 weeks. That would be the only option. There's not been any. The other option is you take them to the open field behind the metal storage containers, and you let them run loose and just pray that, and make sure you have a handle to pray. They don't run off the street because it's not fenced off. Because it's just the other option. It's another play area, it's open, but there's no fence, so I would be concerned, especially the little kinders that just don't want to listen, and they have taken off before, that we don't have a fence here. So this would be the safest for them to play at, if they needed to play in that area, and close off that for 3 to 4 weeks. It's going to be painful, but you have to make do with what you have, it just have to. That would be the worst case scenario. Any ideas to make it any better? That's all I have.
Get rid of the tire.
Any other questions?
That's what's alright with me anyway. That's why I stay.
Okay. All right. Okay, unfinished business, action items. 8.1, reappointment for board member Laura Martinez for 2018. If you recall the last meeting, we asked Laura if she would consider coming back to the board. She agreed that she would. So at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve Laura's renewal for another 2 years on this board.
I move that we reappoint Laura Bornell as member of the board.
Okay, can I hear a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right. Welcome back for 2 more years of fun. Teacher, staff, and admin master contracts for 18-19 master contracts.
Yes, master contract. Oh my God. Okay, so I have the master contract for you. Every year I run this contract by Jennifer, our legal counsel, to make sure that it's up to date with the current, latest, greatest changes. Of course, I'm not an attorney, so I don't keep track of all the changes, but she does. So this year, this particular year, we found ourselves forced to look at other ways to give our staff security and trust for them to accept employment for the next academic year and for future years. So we added a clause at the very end. I believe it's 29 in the teacher's contract. If I'm not mistaken, you can correct me if I'm incorrect, because I read it and I swear to God it was 29.
Number 5?
No, not number 5. Is that 29?
No. Well, this one is letter D, school closure.
Letter D? Yes. Oh, I see why. Oh, I see why I put it there. In every contract, so there is an administration contract, a classified contract, and a teacher contract. Which one are you looking at? There's
The one I have is the instructional coordinator.
Oh, that's why. I thought, I swear to God, that was not.
It's teacher contract under D, number 5.
D number 5. Got it, okay. So, under closure, in the event of closure, before the end of the school year, 2019, I'm proposing that the board approves the master contract for those different positions, which is the main categories. And the only change is that school closure clause, that the staff would get a 3-month as minimum and a 6-month as maximum of a severance package with benefits included and a moving bonus or stipend. Sometimes when you have to when you lose your employment, you have to relocate, and that costs money. So I'm asking that you consider that. It's a possibility if it ever were to happen. We just found ourselves recently faced with that possibility, and we had nothing in the contract to keep people here, to keep anyone here. So many of them decided to leave. So we want to avoid that, and we also want to attract new people coming, knowing that the community has their best interest also in mind. So I'm asking that you consider approving these master contracts so I can start working on them. Like, I'm already a month behind, so I can start processing them tomorrow, before Friday, get them all signed. The new staff members are asking, when am I going to get my contract? Most places have their contracts out. Most districts have contracts signed. And I explained to them that I was working on a clause that was going to be added, and I couldn't add it without board approval. And that would be, like I said, a 3-month to 6-month And that would be off of the reserves. That would be for the rainy day that it's not raining, but it just was storming and hail and hurricane and tornado came through. That would be for that. Jennifer and I worked on that. I also spoke with Donna about it. So this would be in the event of. So we can retain people and don't leave, like we had this year, moving forward. So that's what the community was also suggesting today, to have some severance package offered. And so there is in the contract. We're thinking ahead. We're thinking of the staff. And the 2 or 3 people that are staying, especially teachers, this was very attractive to them, or at least gave them some confidence and peace of mind. We know that teachers, staff, they're here because they love being here, not because we're the highest paying district or highest paying school. So giving them that reassurance and that trust, it's going to go a long way.
So is that the only change from that?
Yeah, the only change.
Okay.
There's nothing new.
In both
It was in the administration contract.
Instructional coordinator, teacher's contract.
And there was a classified one, it would be a part-time one. And there's a part-time one that I included in this. They all have it. It's the same language. All I did was just align the numbering.
Okay. So entertaining a motion to approve the master contracts for the following academic year.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. There you go.
Thank you.
Health insurance stipends for the next academic year. We talked about this last time at the last board meeting, that it is something that, although limited in scope and limited in benefit, it's another benefit for
the health benefit?
Health benefit.
Yes, the health benefit. Last year, the board approved $450. I brought it back to you at $450. I mentioned to you that the insurance was going up, and it went up 11%. Ouch. It's a really good insurance package, by the way. Excellent benefits, only for the employee, not for the family. Now, if you want to add a family member, is about $1,000 for one, and about high 1600s for 2 or more. So those of us who have 2 or more, $1,600 carve off your paycheck every month, because that's how much you pay out of pocket. So I asked last time, and I was speaking, and the board had said, let's table it, let's look and see if we can afford a higher amount. So what we can afford is anything between 500 and 600 max. Over 600, we just can't. Assuming that half of the staff made that election, assuming, lowest would be 500, the highest would be 1,000. So it went up. So my point here is about 600. If you were to make it 500, it would be an 11% increase that it went up. The dental and vision remained the same. I think it came down like 1%, so it didn't make a difference because dental and vision is cheaper than medical. So if you raised it up to 500, that would be the 11% that the medical insurance went up to. Now, if you brought it up to 550 or 600, it's a plus, extra benefit for those who may want to add a family member or they want to keep in mind that it would be an added expense and that the budget would have to be adjusted accordingly so we can afford to cover the families of those employees.
So again, there was only 1 or 2 that took advantage of it last time?
There was only 1 or 2, and those 2 are now returning next year.
Right. Okay, so entertain a motion to approve a health benefit of $600.
Do you want to go 600 or do you want to do?
I mean, it's on paper, so.
It's on paper.
I'm entertaining the motion, and if everyone.
I move that we do 550.
All right. Can I get a second for the 550? Okay. All those in favor of approving increase of 550 health insurance benefit, say aye.
Aye.
And there you go.
Thank you. Thank you. 550 is.
And that's going into the contract somewhere?
That, it doesn't go into the contract, it's an amendment to the contract, because in that amendment it says, there's wording in there. So there's an amendment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to 8.4, Oasis volunteer policy. We've gone over this one several times. I asked if it had gone through OCC again. Did it go through, can somebody confirm that it went through OCC and somebody reviewed it somewhere else?
I know that they didn't have it at one of the meetings, so that's why she tabled it.
Okay.
And she was supposed to have it at the following, which I didn't.
They had it, yeah, we had it at the last meeting.
Was there any feedback from OCC?
There were no, there was nothing that would change what's in front of you. I don't know, there was feedback.
Okay, well, if there's no one who can confirm feedback, I don't have an issue with postponing this yet again.
Yeah.
But is there no comment?
No, postpone.
Yes. Check.
I think with the future that we're seeing, and you guys seem to be more positive, which is great, but having guidelines on parent volunteers when we're already is just probably not the right time. I do agree with having approval, but like I know parents like myself where it says approval from the executive director. I come when I can, just because time permitting with work. So having guidelines as to how many hours and getting pre-approval, I think would discourage a lot of parents, which you said you wanted to have the Oasis that was promised and the Oasis that was supposed to be in the future, and that certainly isn't the Oasis that was promised. Guidelines legally that you have to cover for liabilities, completely understand. But limiting the amount of parent hours and how long and who you need to get approval from, I think isn't the Oasis that was promised.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, so I'd like to, just because I haven't heard from OCC, and I think this is a really great way for, I mean, chop it up, friends. This is where it needs to, yeah, go ahead.
I do, because, I mean, if Amanda was saying earlier, not a lot of parents come to the meetings, and then we have not a lot of parents. Kat was saying too about volunteers, only said on her fixed up that day. This is sometimes the only way we could force parents sometimes to do the extra volunteer. So, I mean, it goes both ways. I understand, like she says, she works and she don't have the time. But it also sometimes the parents feel a little bit more forced. Then that's how that they end up doing the moment. Yeah. You know, both ways.
Well, thank you for your comment.
Yeah.
So I'd like, yet again, to get some feedback to move forward. So anyway, entertain a motion to postpone for the next meeting. Okay, can I get a second? Okay, motion second, all in favor say aye. Aye. All right, there you go. Someone, I urge maybe the new parent group can get this in somehow and do some revisions or talk to OCC.
Yeah.
I just, at one point we'll have to move forward because it's been on the agenda, so, but I agree, it needs to go through some more. Yes.
I am on the OCC, and we did talk about it for like a full 30 to 40 minutes, like Lucy's nodding her head, and we did make revisions. I don't know what happened to those revisions.
They're the ones the second time, so those revisions did get
Okay, so then maybe just talk about that new copy in the next meeting then would be, I guess, on our OCC agenda, is to maybe talk about that new revised copy, because I know we made a bunch of notes.
Revised copies,
But
so
maybe
I guess it'd be like new feedback, then we
okay, so another feedback from her.
Yeah, all the changes are the changes from the last meeting. So I kept it color coded so that I could keep track of what changes were made at what point.
Okay, so then it did go through OCC review.
It did.
I'd like to get some feedback. When I ask it next time, so that you know that. It might not be where everyone wants it. Why is this thing off? Oh, battery died, guys. I think my voice carries. I don't really need it. So I think these are important policies. Obviously, not everyone's going to agree with everything that's put on the paper, but the more input that we receive, the better decision we're going to be making, right? And so please, I urge everyone to go home and mark it up and provide the suggestions so that when we approve something like this, we don't have to go back and forth to review it, revise it every time that there's something new. So we've postponed it probably about 3 times already. And so I urge everyone to please provide feedback. I am going to probably entertain this, I mean, unless there were some changes made to the policy before, on 8.5, Oasis conditions for classroom and school visitation, and removal policy. What's that?
Well, it was reviewed, and remember we made it into 2 separate ones, but it's
All the changes are in blue, the latest changes. The first were in red, and I separated the 1 into 2, as requested.
I need some guidance from the board here before I
Shelve it.
Personally, I've read it, and it's more or less what we've talked about, and it seems that it would be fine to vote on if people feel comfortable with it.
I have a question about that, while you're looking at me.
Yeah.
So on the 48-hour notice for like the approval or for the classroom, is that up to the teacher's discretion, or is that solely going to be to the executive directors? Whose discretion is that? Like, I don't always have 48 hours, so could I contact the teacher and say, I have tomorrow off work, am I able to come into the classroom?
What number is that, so I can follow with you?
This is on the 8.5.
Point number 3 on the removal policy. And point number 3 on the removal.
Point number 3, okay. That's what I meant. Well, this doesn't pertain to parents, right? Am I correct in saying that?
I'm looking at Oasis Charter Public School conditions for classroom and school visitation.
Right.
And under the bullet number 1, there's 2 paragraphs in the number 1. It's page 1 of 8 in this part. It says visits during school hours should first be arranged with the teacher and/or executive director or designee. So does that answer your question?
Hold on.
There is an Chromebook there.
Yeah, I have it. I'm just on another page.
Yeah, we're trying to find the visitation policy. Volunteer policy?
No,
this is the Oasis
conditions
Charter.
for classroom and school visitation. That's what it says at the top of the paper, on the first page. And what I just read is on the first page. It's under subheading number 1.
Oh, here, side.
And again, you can spend all year looking at this, and you know, we can't please everyone.
No,
everyone has different opinions, but the board has to make a decision to either table it for the future, or cancel it completely, or approve it, as it has been revised for the past 4 months at least.
Amanda was asking about the document that says classroom and school volunteer policy, point number 3. So a different article.
Yeah, sorry, I was.
So it's a different paper, and this one's titled Classroom and School Volunteer Policy. Point number 3 says volunteering must be arranged with the classroom teacher and/or executive director or designee at least 48 hours in advance.
Right, that's why it says and/or.
So that's what I was asking. Like, could I approach the teacher the day before and ask?
And/or.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That's all. I just want to know if it was like a no-no if it's not 48 hours in advance.
So that's not one that that's not on this agenda to be approved.
Yeah, it's attached. That's why. Sorry, I got confused.
So the one we're talking about right now to approve is the Oasis conditions for classroom and school visitation, which has pretty much the same stipulations of either the executive director or designee or teacher.
Yes.
Well, considering our attendance for OCC meetings has only been 8 to 10 people, sometimes tops 12, and for them to provide input on a policy that affects the whole school, then we can do a survey. Second, there's already been a motion to table it, in a motion, so I think the motion has to be voted on.
Yeah. You motioned it?
Yeah.
Okay, so can I get a second for the motion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to postpone for the next meeting? Can I hear?
Yes.
An aye from?
Aye.
Okay. Noes?
No.
There's 1 no, 2 noes? Okay. I postpone. I urge everyone. This is my last urge to, please, if nothing happens at the next one, it goes and we live with the consequences of this policy. Okay? You have until when's the next meeting? June what?
Whenever you want to make it. June 13, 14. We don't have a date. We don't have a date. So, whenever the next meeting, we want to make it June 12. We don't have a date for the next meeting.
Okay. In June, all of these policies will be approved. So please, input or no input, let it be put in the record that these will be approved. All right?
Yes, and they have been sent via parent squares also, and they via parent square. It's too much paperwork to be sending copy papers to the homes, and in English and Spanish.
Okay.
So all efforts have been made. What day? The 12th? Oh, he's looking at the 12th. Mike is looking at the 12th. That's the next meeting, and then there needs to be an end of the month meeting in June, so.
That'll be the 26th.
Okay, the 26th potentially.
Very well. 8.6, revised executive director job description. Did everyone get into this one? I did not. I'm pretty sure.
I don't think you get that.
Get out. Dr. Padilla, do you have anything? I don't see it.
The job description was there.
It wasn't on the attachment. Yeah, I didn't see it.
For sure wasn't on the attachment.
Well, the only new thing it had in there was pretty much the salary schedule, the salary range was updated because it was an old salary range, and that was it. There wasn't changes to it, material changes, except for what you approved a couple meetings before the salary.
Okay.
So that's pretty much that. But we can table it and put it back on at the next meeting. That's fine. We can do that.
So Erica, was it?
I found it in the folder, but it's not in an attachment.
So it's not an attachment? No, so, all right. So, yeah, very well. Make sure we get it.
Yeah, that's fine. There's been too many attachments.
Yeah, okay.
We'll add it next time.
Very well, so can
I move that we table the
Second.
executive director job description till next meeting.
Motion been seconded, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Saying my job easy. That'll be postponed to the next meeting. Please make sure everyone looks at that. And we're off to announcements.
Boxland coming up, May 31st and June 2nd. From what time to what time? I don't know.
It's 12:30 to 2:30.
12:30 to 2:30?
3 days?
And
2 days.
2 days. Thursday and Friday. And just a reminder to the community, Boxland is for children, run and led by children. The parents must not run the businesses. It's the children. Now, sometimes the children have some issues and challenges. Let the children handle that. I can't stress it enough. The parents I've seen parents argue with children over Sharkies. And that's embarrassing. I don't want to have to escort you out and invite you to leave, to go to your house. Because it's so embarrassing to see children crying because the adult got into an argument with them about the Sharkies, really? And about how much they're charging for the whatever service they're providing. They are children. Or just issues like that come up. Like when somebody gets fired and then the parent comes in and says, my kid got fired from, let us work with children. It's children-related issues that we need to resolve, and the parents can't get in the middle of that because it gets really messy and it gets ugly. So we've had that happen every year. So I keep saying every year, please, it's a game for children to learn. It's an academic game. It's Boxland. And Boxland is all about learning from their experience. Be part of it, but don't be a problem.
We have a police department for that, so.
We don't have to use a police department against the parents.
Hey, the kids might show us all how to negotiate and
Yeah.
interact as adults.
You might get fined.
Yeah, I will.
I got fined 1 year, so I never did it.
Yeah, so we have, I mean, it's all, there's their project, they run it, and we're just the facilitators.
And they're looking forward to that every year. They're looking forward to Boxland. So we want to make it a memorable experience for them and not this, oh my God, a parent yelled at me because I didn't give them the right change. Or Sharkies, I've heard. So please don't let the children run it, and if there's issues, bring it up to administration so that we can look into it. But know that our investigation is not going to be as serious as it may be if it involves other major issues. It's more about what happened. Tell me, okay, how are you going to solve it? Because it's Boxland, an academic game. It's not a real thing of, he gave me the wrong change, he's trying to steal my money. It's not, doesn't work that way. It's paper fake money.
9.2.
6th grade graduation, June 12th, 6:30, it'll be handled up for Sharpton. The 5th grade parents are working with the 6th grade families, and they have it all organized. So it's open to anyone, so please join us if you'd like to. Promotion.
They'll have the caps and gowns already. First graduation, promotion.
Thank you. And then we have the future agenda, as appointed the board members. Probably on the next agenda.
Yeah, so June 12th, do you want to say June 12th the next meeting?
I don't want to say that.
Oh.
It'll be in a future,
We'll post it.
It'll be in a future meeting. I do want to thank those members who are here, who submitted applications. We have your applications, and we're still going through that process. So be patient with us, please, and we'll continue to put it on either on the agenda or future agenda. Okay.
Can you expand at all on why we're putting that out?
I can give you my personal opinion. I don't know about the rest of the board members. Under the current conditions that we're in right now, to bring a new person into the mix of what we're going through is probably a very stressful situation. And so until we resolve where we currently are, we want the new board member, whoever it is, to start out fresh and in a better condition that we currently are. And so sort of to bring someone in the mix, it's just not what we want for a board member. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
It's more or less comment, and I think at this point with the school situation, it's not a priority to change any board members right now. It's like more, we need to be like more focused on whether the school is open or not, and to be as a parent, to be here, to be informed, and to bring our kids, and to be positive and everything. So instead of like looking for the negative things, try to be looking for the positive things that the school has, that the you guys are doing, that the teachers are doing, whether they're leaving or staying or new teachers are coming. We need to talk good about the school. This is the school that we've been here. I've been here like almost 7 years, I think, and there are things different before than now, and I can say that it's been positive, the changes. Okay, this is not my first year. I'm not gonna be, because I don't know Oasis in 1 year. I never knew Oasis in 1 year. So I know Oasis for almost 6 years. So I know what is good and bad and everything. So I think we need to be focused on the positive comments we do. And we say And especially because we want the best for our kids, not for me, for the kids. So I think we should be looking for something positive to say and talk about Oasis.
Thank you for your comments. Casey?
This was wondering, how many board members are you guys thinking of adding, just out of curiosity?
The current bylaws has for 7 board members. We currently have 6, so we could probably be looking for 1 more.
And just as a last comment, we will open in August, will be fully operational. That's the message that we need to send out to the community is we'll be fully staffed. It's going to be operational at full capacity. So families need to bring their children. Like we said before, even in the event of a revocation, it will be a year's process, a whole academic year, and they haven't even started that. And between revocation and appeals. So at least 1 academic year. However, I see the negotiations moving in the right direction to continue to exist beyond that 1 academic year. So from where I know and where I stand is we will be opening in August.
Any other comments? Okay, calling this meeting to close. Thank you everyone for coming. I know it's a good shit.